It's there for me.
All right, I want to welcome everyone to today's Lunch Break Special program. I'm going to be introducing our speaker today, who's Rod Mizell. And today's sponsor for this month's program is Sue Jones. Mr. Mizell, he's going to be speaking about Minority Care International, which has been in operation for 17 years and helps to provide education development, employment opportunities, economic development, and healthcare to minorities. And Rod has been, he's been in Greenville, I think, over 40 years, somewhere around there. And he's done a lot of things. He's been in aviation as a pilot, in healthcare as a hospital administrator, and also a businessman in several different fields, including, oh, you were with Brandon Airlines too. So was Sandy. I don't know if you know Sandy. She was a stewardess with Brandon. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Rod.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity. Can you hear me back there? These
Okay.
speakers working out for you?
Do we need to
I
turn
appreciate
that's
the
probably
opportunity
the
to
door? You got to shut that door.
to speak at the lunch break special. You know, I've lived in Greenville quite some time, and one thing I've come to appreciate about Greenville is that they have many good charitable nonprofit organizations. And so my impression of Greenville is a very giving community and very supportive of those who are less fortunate. And that's really what we've done with Minority Care International. It's a Texas-based LLC. It's based here in Greenville. And it's approved by the IRS as a 501c3 nonprofit humanitarian organization. And so it was, we started operations in January of 2007 in the Philippines with the opening of a coffee shop. And that sounds, you'll understand later how that plays into what we do. But it's part of the platform building in a community. Sometimes when you go into other communities, you have to establish a presence, and it began with a coffee shop. So what I'm going to do is I have about 22 slides. I'm going to talk fast, and you're going to have to listen fast. So just keep moving right on through. So this is a picture of our first student. What Minority Care International does is they went to Mindanao, which is the most southern island in the Philippines. It's the largest island in the southern Philippines. You know, you have Luzon in the north, and on the north end, and you have Mindanao on the south end. And so we started operations in Davao City, and our purpose there was to provide scholarships for a small number of students. And so our president of the MCI traveled all over the island, sometimes on the back of a motorcycle, sometimes by bus. And so he started interviewing students who were ready to graduate from high school, looking for the brightest and best. And these students were the kind of students who would have no opportunity to go to university because their families just didn't have the means to send them. So they would be the first person in their family to ever go to college. And the principle behind that is that we regard education as a way to overcome many of the obstacles that the poor experience. They don't have opportunity, they don't have location, they don't have the funds. Maybe they haven't even thought of college as a pathway for their life. And so we're trying to open up doors to students that are very underprivileged. So she was our first, Akeisha, and you can see something of the housing conditions that they lived in. They're basically squatters. This is public land on the beach, but they have moved in over time and built shanty towns that they live in. The first community that we went to was living under a bridge in Davao City to protect from the rain. And so they had taken scraps of wood and tin and fabric and whatever, and built whatever kind of housing they could put together under the bridge. This is an example of one of the early interview sessions where they were talking to students who were interested in one of the outlying communities on the island. And so they were very carefully screened to try and pick the best candidates. And part of the principle behind that is that we wanted to find students that had the ability but not the access to education. In terms of, we're doing it in terms of cultivating new leaders from the Philippines that could eventually be successful in our field. Here are some of our early students. This girl graduated in sociology. She's right now in law school. This young lady graduated as a social worker. She's working now as an accountant in a call center. She's a nurse. He's a nurse working in the northern United States. She is in special education. She did an internship at Bowles Home and is working in special education in the Philippines right now. She is a pharmacist. She started working in a hospital but didn't feel like she had the community contact that she needed. So now she's working in a local pharmacy in the community so that she can have more direct contact with patients. And this fellow's a nurse, and I can't remember what his career field is, but so you can sort of see some of the avenues and some of the success we've had with students. We teach the scholars that we have on scholarship to become involved in the community. One is they participate in a soccer program. What the MCI has done is they've gone into the community where students have dropped out of school and they're just looking for trouble basically. And so they bring them into a soccer program, teach them discipline, some leadership skills. So there's much more than just soccer being learned in this program. It's giving them an avenue and a reason for sort of turning their life in the right direction. This is a fellowship. This is a Bible study that's being offered on a volunteer basis. Some of them will join a Bible study. This is a cultural night that they have in the coffee shop that we talked about. One of the problems that Mindanao had is they got 40 different tribes with their own separate languages. The common language is Tagalog, and then they teach English in school. So there's quite a bit of sometimes outright animosity between the different tribes, but in the scholars that are coming in to the program, they learn to love each other, cooperate with each other, and their families are introduced to that environment. And so the local government loves what MCI is doing because it's overcoming some of these divisions in society that are artificially there. And once they get to know each other, they can get over those barriers. So this is a culture night where the families have joined the students. And I don't know if you recognize this guy right here, Chet Haney. He was pastor at Highland Terrace for quite some time. He went and spoke at one of our student retreats. Okay, well, here's some other things that happen at the coffee shop. It's called Saturday Night Study Forums, and so the 17 scholars invite their friends from the university and discuss current events, current ideologies, all kinds of current subjects. And so they give an opportunity to discuss it among themselves. We try and, much of what we do there as an organization is inspired by our faith beliefs. And so part of what we try and instill in also is a Christian worldview. So these are, at one point we brought students to the United States until we couldn't afford to do it anymore, and they would come for one semester and take a couple of courses, and then they would go back to the Philippines. And that gave them an advantage in the Philippines because anything American is prized. If you've spent a semester at an American university, that makes you more competitive among your peers when you go back. And so it was really interesting to have students staying with American families and learning the American culture, good or bad, and then going back. The MCI provides a dormitory for the scholars. This is called the Lighthouse. So the females have the upstairs floor, and the male students have partitioned off a part of the ground floor where there's a living room and a kitchen and a few places there for the males. And that's called the Lighthouse. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to afford that either. One of the things we've tried to do is build a relationship in the local community by bringing people from Greenville to Davao City. And you can see this is Dan Flynn and his wife came and spoke at a public forum there. Dr. Graham Sweeney, Dee Hilton, and remember this was the first student we had. When we met them, they didn't have a home. They lived in the market above the table where they were selling used clothing. So it was a little shelf above their stall where they lived. They didn't have a home. So this is her mother. You can see Dee's probably, I'm guessing 5'8". So she's probably, well, she's short. I don't know how short she is, but she's down there. Okay, other professionals. We've got Dr. Terry Simpson, who came and spoke at a conference on education. Dr. Bob Collins, who was like a vice president out at L3. He taught at the university here, Texas A&M Commerce, and taught a course on entrepreneurship. Leslie Kilgore, she's not in the picture here, but this was an audience that she provided on leadership at Mindanao University. Now, one of the things we do is we have an annual retreat for the scholars plus friends that want to go. It's a 3-day retreat. In this case, it's in the mountains. And so what they do is they come for 3 days, and it's a mix of events. But the speaker presents a book that they're all given a book. He presents in certain subjects, whatever it turns out to be. And so it's a reading time, presentation time, and sharing between students. And then they break that up with games and competitions and things like that. And so this is the kind of group that would normally go to a student retreat. That's been going on every year since the beginning of our program. This is students receiving an award from the Department of Education. The alternative program is for students that have dropped out of high school. And so the scholars are tutoring these students that have fallen out of the program so they can eventually get a GED. And that's what the Department of Education is recognizing at that time. These are some of our first graduates. All of these in white are nurses. And this guy is especially a special person. You can see here, his name is Jerwin. Are you aware of the Mercy Ship that's based out of Van, Texas? It's a floating hospital ship that stations itself off the coast of Benin, Africa, the west coast of Africa. And people actually pay to go serve on that ship. And so he first German right here first started working in the operating room in the Philippines. Then he went to the Mercy Ship. Then he went to Samaritan's Purse. And I think he worked there with, I think it was, do you remember the country? Was it Indonesia? Pakistan, somewhere in that area, Southeast Asia. Nepal. Then he moved to Doctors Without Borders, and he worked in places like Southern Sudan. And most of these places are places experiencing conflict and lots of forced migration away from conflict areas. And so he's dealing with people all over the world like that. Right now he's in Brussels, Belgium, studying for a master's degree in public and
Global health.
global health. One of the activities that the students do is similar to what we have here in Greenville called Tools for School. In fact, that's where they got the idea. If you're aware of that program, there are volunteer groups throughout Greenville. They get together once a year and they buy backpacks and stuff them full of school supplies for parents that really don't have the means to buy enough of the proper school supplies that they need for school, to start school each year. And so we started doing that in Davao City. We started taking backpacks to the local madrasa, which is the Muslim schools scattered throughout the city. They're on the low end of the economic scale in Davao City, and most of those students live in this squatter settlements that you saw. And so they package these school supplies for these children. Well, it turns out that about our 5th year into the program, one of the scholars said, "Do you think we could do Tools for School for the juvenile detention center?" He had a brother who was basically in jail for something. And so the local worker there said, you thought about it? And he said, "Sure, we can do that." Which led to the next phase of, so there's three specific areas where MCI is working. One is with student scholars, the next is the local jail, and then we have a regional prison that they're starting to work with. And so the principle that he began in 2017 was college education behind bars. Now this building looks pretty nice, but it was actually the President Duterte had a drug policy that he had instituted before this building was refinished or remodeled. It was anti-drug program. And the way he administered that was either you turn yourself in or we're going to send our squads after you and kill you. Well, that meant the enrollment in people turning themselves in and filling the local jails went on high speed. So you can't see it, but the jail sits right here. And it was built for 400 people and was holding over 3,000.
Oh.
They were stacked in there like cordwood. At night, every 4 hours, they would rotate. Some would stand so that others could lie down and sleep. That's how bad it was. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I don't have a picture here, but we have one picture where there's about 4 levels, and you can't see any of the floor. It's just everything. All the walls are covered with bodies. Some are hanging in hammocks, and the rest are covering the floor. So it's just nothing but bodies, elbow to elbow. And so they gave him, the local jail gave him this facility. They completely gutted it and remodeled it and started a college education behind bars. And so you can see this sign right here says, "Education is freedom," because we still feel that like education is the answer to many of these people who don't have alternatives except maybe a life of crime. And so you can see they got it remodeled. There's classroom space on both levels. There's a library, there's a computer room, there's a coffee shop. And it sort of was a turnaround. It was an alternative to the previous government program that was so severe. So instead of just plain incarceration, now they're looking at what do you do to change hearts and minds of these people that are in jail. So there's education, reform, reconciliation, training, and so they come out of jail with a changed heart and mind, and they are becoming productive citizens. Right now, I think we're up to 250 are in the program. Some are released from jail, but they still continue in the education program, and something like 75 graduates in just the local jail alone. So here's some students taking college entrance exams. They don't water it down for them. They have to pass the same courses or the same exams that anybody else wants to join the local university. And you can see officials' support here and some of the students who are in the background there. Well, I don't know if those are students, those are just detainees. This is the Stephen Scott Sandin room, and we have Dr. Sandin and his wife to thank for contributing to the remodeling of this business, along with some others. And so this name was named after his son, Steve Sandin. This happens to be a Korean pastor here who is teaching scripture memorization. And in fact, one of the things that's unique about this program is this college education by bars is there's no apparent separation between church and state like you might find here. So part of the college curriculum through the University of Southeastern Philippines is this program. It's called Personal Development 1. This guy's teaching scripture memorization. Personal Development 2 says, okay, you know the verses, what do they mean? And Personal Development 3 is, okay, you know the verse, you know what they mean, what are you going to do with it? So it takes it to the practical application side of what they've been learning. But it's all incorporated in the college degree program. And so you have some, our worker there is very upfront about this. He says to the Muslim students, now you understand, part of this program to get a college degree is going through this class. And they say, yep, no problem, because they want the degree. So they're at least hearing the word, whether it takes or not is, well, they hear it, we've done our part, okay? So anyway, here are some graduates, more graduates. You can see them. No, this is not quite accurate right now. I think it's higher than that. But every year they're cranking out graduates. But these are all from coming out of jail. This has been, this is an educational conference, and so you can see the title there. It says the inmates transformative education is successful reentry. So they're trying to draw the community into the reintegration part, the side of this education program, so that not only do they get a degree, but they find a job to follow that. These are more pictures of the, now, this is the next and last group I'm talking about. We've talked about the local jail, but now Manila has seen this jail and they appreciate it so much they said we want to do something at the prison level So now we've moved from a local jail to a prison that holds 8,000 prisoners. And so the government has completely, well, first of all, they donated 8 hectares of land. I'm not sure exactly how large a hectare is, but let's say 8 acres. They donated the land and they donated the funding to build. We don't have a concept diagram here of the entire structure, but it would include an administrative building, 2 dormitories, and classroom space on 8 acres. And so the central building that we're supposed to be administration is the one that's completed. The rest are still in process. But so they're gonna in the one building they do have, they're gonna put classrooms on, I think, the ground floor and dormitory space on the top floor. So they can move prisoners out of the cramped spaces they're coming from into a larger living area and an education area that's separate from the prison population. So part of that concept has to do with what the prison leadership is thinking about. You know, they used to be thinking about halfway houses. The problem with halfway houses is that prisoners in a halfway house can leave the house and come back, and so they can have contact with their previous associates. And so the recidivism rate isn't what it should be because they're being influenced by those who are outside the system. Well, in this case, the housing and the education stay in the system, and they are not influenced by negative forces outside the prison property itself. So they finish with a degree, and they're included in this transition from prison to active workforce without that negative influence in between. So this is some of the signing ceremonies at the prison where they're signing memorandum of agreements with the college education behind bars. This is one of the orientation sessions. So everybody with a dark blue shirt is a prisoner, and they're getting the initial information, and then they go through a long screening process to narrow it down. These are some students. During COVID, the way they taught courses was that instead of the professors coming into the prison with the chance of bringing exposure into a closely knit population, they sent these packets of information, so they would study the material, turn in those packets, and send them back to the university. So they could still continue their education even though it wasn't face-to-face and it wasn't online. One of the things we try and teach our students is how to get back to their community. You know, they've been brought forward to a higher level of success in their own life, but how do you turn and help the next person? It's sort of like the paying it forward that you saw in that movie sometime back. One of the ways that they do that is through distribution of eyeglasses. They've done that in the prison and in the local communities. And so the students team up with a local ophthalmologist team, and they do eyeglass exams, eye exams, and fit them with glasses that are contributed to the local community. This is more of our graduates getting back to the College Behind Bars program in the local jail. The way there is a certain amount of money allotted per prisoner, per detainee in the local jails and in the prison, but sometimes that money doesn't get to them in the way of food. And so our students who have been part of the MCI program deliver food to the jail to make sure that their food source is augmented. So they're giving back in that way. So I have a verse for you. I want to thank you for letting me speak today. And here's the verse. You see a brief portion of it here. It says, this is Matthew 20. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So that's one way where our faith informs our service. So, I guess it's, where are we on time here? We have time for questions if you like. Would you?
It was really interesting. I really enjoyed that because I ran a diagnostic and treatment center for the state of Connecticut for 32 years for the murderers, rapists, and armed robbers in the juvenile aspect.
Wow.
And I was going to ask you about the recidivism rate because that's one of the main problems we've had since 1960 right on up, was you get them to a certain place, to a certain place on the mountain, and then you've got to stop, and how do they continue? Where do they continue? Where do they go? Da 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 da. And that's where we ran into the major problems.
Yeah. We've had very good success with this education program behind bars. I think there's been zero recidivism. Yeah, and that's unheard of.
Almost zero.
Almost zero. But see, I think it goes back, you've heard that phrase, you're changing hearts and minds, right? So we're changing minds with the education program, but we're trying to change hearts with the application of faith principles. And to me, that's where the real change occurs. If the person has a heart change, then the education is an added benefit to that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you address you can make a person educated, but they don't have a heart change, they're just a smart criminal. We want to make a good person smart. So that's sort of where we're coming from, is double-sided.
And from your program, I see exactly what you've just said. My thoughts are, where is the vocation? Where do they actually work or extend past the moment of learning?
Well, remember the picture I showed you with the various students? One was becoming a lawyer.
Oh, yeah, but
One of the farms.
I'm saying locally. I mean, surely not everybody ups and goes to Belgium or wherever.
Oh, no. Those are, now, let's say on that screen with the 6%.
It just didn't seem like there was a participation within their own community, is what I'm trying to say, after they finish.
Kay wants to answer that one.
Okay.
She's my wife.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
Okay,
Okay, okay.
so one of the principals, when they work at the coffee shop, so they get a scholarship, and for 4 hours a day, they work at the coffee shop. They have to
Oh,
learn
okay.
life
Didn't
skills.
get- yeah.
You have to show up on time if you can't be there, and you have to clean, and he teaches them, if you clean a toilet, you do it to your best, because you won't always be cleaning toilets. And one of the social workers actually got her job at a corporation because they asked, why do you want to work there? And she told them that very story about that, you do your best.
Uh-huh.
So those people are trained to become educated, and then they go back in the community and they're breadwinners. So not only they provide for themselves,
Okay.
there's one of those pictures of the nurse,
Uh-huh.
Anita, has
Uh-huh.
8 people living in her family that she's providing for, brothers, parents, his parent, her husband's parents, because they become, so they can move off of the beach or the squatter's house into a home, and they provide for them.
So
there's
there
local
is a
struggle.
city to boot besides the beach. Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
Davao City is huge.
Oh, okay.
So they have been, almost all of them, once they get that college degree, are able to provide for them
Uh-huh.
in some capacity.
Okay.
And in the jails and prisons, they also have a technical program where they're learning, if you can't make the college education, they have electrical programs, they have programs that you can go into.
Wonderful,
Yeah, some of the
okay.
other
That's what I was looking for. Because, it's very easy that you're trying to develop a person before a job.
Yes,
Okay.
Right.
and this is a,
Because they're not a person yet. Yes, I understand that.
so all of them are trained, not, all of them have to work and learn the life skills, and you have to work. That's how you know.
Oh, okay, I
So
didn't
that's a
understand
big part of
that.
it. You have to work and you have to give back. Those are two of the principles. of it.
Okay, thank you,
And
Kate.
they don't come knowing how to work with the public.
Oh,
So they're learning that as well as their educational material. So, educating that one student is like a rock being dropped in the pond. There's concentric circles outside that. They help their immediate family, they help the local community. Some of them travel abroad and they're
Is there Spanish spoken more than English there, or?
Spanish, the Philippines used to be a Spanish colony, so there's some words that are Spanish, but it's primarily the tribal languages and
And English.
Tagalog and English, right?
Okay.
And the most recent thing, just one more thing, is that we have another group going over this summer to train those in the rehabilitation program, that Steps to Recover. We have another team going over for another study retreat, and then there is a conference, which is the third national conference. And by the way, the vice president of the Philippines now has written and accepted how wonderful this is. It's recognized nationally. So it went from one person going into there saying, what should I do, to national recognition. And that conference that's coming in the fall is on reentry. So we have two experts in the U.S. that are going to speak at that conference on setting up a reentry program so that you get your community to say, I will hire an ex-convict,
Uh-huh.
because usually people don't want to, And so it's extending the program in what you were asking.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was looking for. Okay.
What's really fun to think about is this last year, the person in charge of all the jails in the Philippines, I don't know what his title is per se, like it'd be like at the cabinet level, presented our worker there with a memo that said, we want to have this program installed in every jail in the Philippines. So our president sat down and wrote a set of guidelines. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the resources to take care of every jail, but he
Yeah.
wrote the guidelines to be implemented as it's put in by the government. And the other thing she mentioned that I want to reemphasize again is that the person who was mayor of Davao City became vice president of the Philippines this last time, who is in line to become president of the Philippines if the elections work out the way she would like. And so it's just miraculous how this program has been favored with acceptance at the local and the national level. So it's very exciting to see where this might go.
Dr. Sanders on the board.
Dr. what?
Dr. Sanders on the board here at Greenville, right behind you.
Hello.
Anyway, thank you for letting me share this information.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much for coming out today. I really enjoyed that. I love learning about this kind of things. Let's see, next month's speaker is going to be Jessica Ranowski from Texas A&M University. She's going to be talking about the new documentary they're doing. I think it's been released, or it is going to be released, one or the other. And Audit Day is coming up on May 18th. And talk to you later. See you next week.
And the 17th, you're doing the movie.